of our two-day in-person and hybrid meeting in Riverside, California. It's a pleasure to be here today. Thank you all for coming in person and braving the rain with us. And we thank you all who are joining us remotely. So Doug, could you please read the roll? Oh, and I'll gavel us in.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Alvarado.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Davis.
Here.
Commissioner Eager.
Present.
Commissioner Falcone.
Here.
Commissioner Grisby.
Present.
Commissioner Guardino.
Say it again.
There you go. Commissioner Guardino.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Inman.
Here.
Commissioner Liu.
Here.
Commissioner Martinez.
Present.
Commissioner Tavoloni. Chair Norton.
Present.
Senator Newman. Assemblymember Friedman. Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you so much. And with that, we are going to start on item 22 today. Tim Sobelman, Caltrans Efficiencies Report.
Thank you, Chair Norton. Good morning, Commissioners. Senate Bill, item 22 is a Caltrans information item. Senate Bill 1 amended the Streets and Highway Code to include a requirement that Caltrans implement efficiency measures with a goal to generate at least $100 million per year in savings to invest back in maintenance and rehabilitation of the state highway system, and that these savings be reported to the Commission. Caltrans provided the final efficiencies report to the Commission on November 24th. However, this did not give staff enough time to provide an assessment at today's meeting, so staff will be providing an assessment at the January CTC meeting. Also, instead of having this topic at 2 meetings, the CTC asked Caltrans to do their presentation on the efficiencies report to coincide with the CTC's assessment in January.
Thank you. So that item will be moved to January, and since it's an information item, we'll move to item 23.
Thank you. Item 23 is an information item in which Caltrans will be providing you with an update on their office buildings, operations, and maintenance. This item was last presented to the Commission at the August 2020 CTC meeting. Shannon Similai, Caltrans Chief of the Division of Business Operations, is here to present, and I think she'll be presenting virtually. Shannon, are you there?
Hold on, I need to move over.
All right, no problem.
Shannon, are you there? You should be able to unmute yourself now.
Good morning. I just did. Hopefully you can hear me and apparently possibly see me as well. Is that right?
We can hear you. We can't see you quite yet. We can see the presentation now.
Okay, very good. And for bandwidth issues, I think I will try to go ahead and turn off my video just to make sure that there are no technical glitches, which there often can be. Okay, good morning. Good morning, Commission members. My name is Shannon Similai, and I am the Division Chief of Business Operations. The division I lead has statewide responsibility for Caltrans office buildings, and I appreciate the opportunity to provide this annual update for you today. Next slide, please. Today's presentation will provide a high-level review of information regarding our facility portfolio, which illustrates the breakdown of facility types within Caltrans. Those types fall under 2 main categories of transportation-related facilities and office buildings. The next topic will be on office buildings maintenance and management. In general, this portion covers our process for identifying and addressing building needs. I'll share expenditure data on fiscal year 2021 and display the breakdown by categories. And then we'll discuss transformation implementation, which highlights the actions Caltrans is taking in the course of adopting telework and determining our office space use and needs moving forward. At the end, there will be an opportunity for questions and comments. Next slide, please. This slide identifies Caltrans transportation-related facilities and identifies the 4 primary categories and the division with oversight responsibility of each. The bottom bullet to the right acknowledges other transportation facility types that exist but are not included within the category counts provided. For clarity, I want to make sure it's clear that these facility types are outside of the area of responsibility of the Division of Business Operations and are not included within the remainder of this presentation. Next slide, please. Office buildings are the focus of this presentation and comprise a significant proportion of the capital investment within the Caltrans overall facilities portfolio. There are 12 district offices and the headquarters locations, all of which encompasses approximately 3.3 million square feet, which in comparison is roughly about 76 acres. Maintenance responsibilities of these buildings fall into 4 main areas. Caltrans has sole responsibility for districts 1, 5, and 9. The Department of General Services has sole responsibility for districts 3 and 11, for which they own. Caltrans, although we own districts 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, and 10, and headquarters, we partner with DGS for various services at those locations. District 12 is a leased facility, and so obviously care and operations maintenance are taken care of by the lessor at that location. Next slide, please. Be it the primary responsibility of DGS or Caltrans, building maintenance activities are performed through the various expertise of on-site staff, such as stationary engineers, maintenance mechanics, and chief of plant operators. Their work is overseen by building managers, who ensure proper operation and maintenance of the various components. Building maintenance activities and equipment performance data is collected, tracked, and monitored through management software programs or manual logs. Our building conditions are evaluated and assessed through collaboration with DGS, Caltrans technical staff, and consultants hired to perform assessments. As illustrated in the slide, building condition assessments have been conducted within the last 5 years at all Caltrans owned office buildings, with the exception of 3, which did not require assessments as they are 30 years newer in age. Based upon this, we're running into the time of looking at doing new building condition assessments since these are at around the age of 5 years old. The next slide, please. Our deferred maintenance. Through a collaborative process, the Division of Business Operations staff works with building managers to develop and reassess deferred maintenance project priorities, which are set based on fire life and safety impacts, equipment condition, and available funding. The funding for deferred maintenance projects is allocated through the admin program budget. Listed on this slide are the primary deferred maintenance project categories. Next slide, please. These pie charts provide a visual display of the deferred maintenance categories by percentage of funds expended statewide for the past 3 fiscal years. As you can see, expenditures vary greatly year by year depending upon the identified needs. In fiscal year 2021, there were many projects within the building maintenance category, which involved carpet replacement, door and gate repairs, elevator repairs, window replacements, restroom renovations, and scaffolding repairs. Next slide, please. Office building projects that exceed the funding capacity of the deferred maintenance budget may be pursued through SHOP. The 2020 SHOP does not include any new maintenance projects for office buildings. These 3 SHOP projects on the slide were approved in prior SHOP cycles and are currently in progress, with 2 projects having awarded contracts. Next slide, please. Caltrans is currently reassessing our space requirements and office layout based on the adoption of telework. The DGS statewide policy was released in October of 2021, and Caltrans is actively working to ensure our telework program is compliant with the statewide policy. Our management teams have been assessing and evaluating the extent to which telework is sustainable for our workforce to successfully deliver projects and meet our strategic objectives. This determination contributes to the requirements of office space within our buildings and is a critical component in planning for building replacements. Caltrans will ensure all projects tie directly to the respective SHSMP and SHOP. Additionally, LEED and ZNE standards will be incorporated in our office building replacement projects. In 2018, the priority of the long-range office building replacements was determined by Caltrans executive leadership based on the assessment ratings and coupled with other critical factors at the time. The building condition assessments rated each building within the poor range, which is not surprising given their age. Given their ages fall between 85 to 63 years of old. However, as pointed out within Mike Johnson's presentation yesterday, age does not automatically equate to the lower rating, as many environmental maintenance factors contribute to a building's condition. Next slide, please. Caltrans is working actively on green building actions, one of which is that our District 8 San Bernardino office, we are pursuing a LEED certification at that location. Also, my team is partnering closely with the Office of Sustainability within Caltrans and at DGS towards conducting energy audits at all of our state-owned buildings to improve energy and efficiencies within existing buildings where possible. Additionally, we are seeking out opportunities for greener business operations and implementing new or altered processes to reduce paper use where feasible. Next slide, please. Moving into our expenditure information. 2021, the total amount was $90.6 million expended. And this slide illustrates the percentage of funds expended in each category. It's easy to see that DGS receives more than half of the building's annual funding. Lease expenditures take second place, which also provides funds to DGS for 2 of the office locations in Sacramento. And last, the 3 categories of security guard, operations and maintenance, and projects are minimal in comparison to the larger proportions. Next slide, please. Breaking down the funds that go to DGS, we see that 51% of the expenditures are directly attributable to Districts 3 and 11 for the debt service or bond payments and operation and maintenance by DGS. The next largest proportion goes to operations and maintenance costs for services at all other locations. That includes Districts 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 10, and headquarters. The central plant and leasing charges are fees set by DGS. The planner and project costs are related to space projects working with DGS. Next slide, please. As we've all experienced over the past 21 months, the new work world has created opportunities for significant and beneficial transformation that may not have been previously possible. Caltrans is continuing our efforts to transition to a more permanent telework program by ensuring compliance with the newly released DGS statewide policy. We are working to fully identify our telework population and appropriately adjusting our office space use to suit the needs of the emerging work world. As of April 2021, Caltrans has already begun reducing our leased office space and will continue to do so where feasible. On the long-range plan building replacements, we are continuing to reevaluate and determine our office space requirements, partnering with and learning from industry experts to form new concepts for space use, and are focused on incorporating adjustments that will result in efficiencies. Additionally, our processes involves working with DGS to ensure thorough cost-benefit analysis are performed on building replacements for full consideration on various options in accomplishing the need. Lastly, we have the opportunity and the responsibility as good stewards of state financial and physical resources to reevaluate decisions of the past to ensure they are appropriate for today's new work world. Next slide, please. With that, I will close by thanking you for your time, and I'm happy to open it up for questions.
Thank you very much. I see that Commissioner Inman has a question.
Thank you. And thank you, Shannon. Could you go back to the slide on the deferred maintenance? I was concerned to see fire life safety listed.
Mhm.
I think it was back
One
further.
slide prior. There you go.
So we do not have fire life safety issues on a deferred maintenance schedule, do we?
So, no, thank you for pointing that out. These are just identifying the various areas that funds have gone into as far as taking care of the building. Forgive the term deferred maintenance. That's just, I would say internally a catch-all phrase for the projects that are needed to be put forth to take care of a building. Probably poor labeling on our side, but they're not items that have not been gotten to. It's the routine maintenance of those needs of the building.
Okay, routine is very different than deferred in my development world. But
For sure.
a question I have for you. So where's the cumulative total? So I'm just going to pick on our buddies at District 7 because that building is relatively young. It wouldn't be in the poor definition by age, but it is one that I think every cycle has a big chunk of dollars that need to go to that. So where's a cumulative analysis to say we've got an issue? This, we're throwing more money and next year it's going to be yet more money and more money. So do you all do an analysis of that type?
We do have project costs as far as historical information. Unfortunately, I do not have that with me and handy. I do know we had some follow-up questions on last year's presentation regarding District 7, and I do believe that costs had been provided or at least calculated. So I am more than happy to go back, grab that information, update it with any new expenses, and provide a cumulative costs for, is it just District 7 that you're?
Well, I just use that as an example. I happen to be from that region, so I know it well, but it just seems to me, and my business is an asset based business, so this is an area that I'm familiar with, at least on the private side. And when we have, I'll call it a troubled project that, seems to have chronic issues, we want to make sure that we're penny wise and pound foolish, or we're not penny wise and pound foolish on that.
That's right.
I said that backwards, but anyway, so I guess my question is, where's the cumulative analysis to say this is a bigger issue? It's not just happenstance that it's on the list.
To Commissioner Inman's point, could you go back to the slide that has two cycles of investments in District 7? I think it was over $4 million in your presentation.
So this one, yes, and these are the roof project as well as the boiler projects, and they do both involve District 7, stemming back from early in 2017 or so, I believe, is when these items were identified. And I do believe that these were issues that had come up because due to maintenance and care of the building. Roofs do deteriorate, but I do believe that this one had come a result of some problems that had been encountered, as well as I think that the boiler problem may have been attributed to some calcium buildup and things that had been discovered well before that. Well noted that these are items that I think needed to be replaced sooner than would have been anticipated or expected.
But this building was built and opened relatively recently, correct?
I believe
I
so,
mean-
and I 2004 or 7, I think it is, if I can recall correctly. I was not here at the time, but I believe if I've got the number right, I think it was around the 2004 timeframe.
Yeah.
Okay.
So question on the energy, on one of the slides, you considering an energy audit. Shouldn't we really be doing our energy audits? I mean, in the private side, we're regularly doing energy audits in terms of trying to monitor, when we should really lean in and make those. Plus, we have our state goals of reducing emissions. And so how could we help you get energy audits for all of these and make sure that we do kind of walk the walk, I think, for, our state goals?
Yeah, well, and exactly. That's what we are focused on doing, is that we're partnering with PG&E on trying to make sure that we are in actually conducting those audits at all of our locations. I know we have meetings coming up here very, very soon that is to embark on that effort. And I hope that within the coming months, we will be well underway of having those audits conducted.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioners are in there. Commissioner Liu.
Can you pull up the slide that looked at the DGS, the pie chart of the DGS share? I think I saw in there 23% for debt service. Well, as you're looking for that slide, I was just wondering if, and I don't know if this is a DGS or a Caltrans issue, if that debt service is high interest and long term, if anyone's considered whether there'd be a good idea to restructure that.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Yes, it has been brought up a couple of times, and one of our bonds, District 11, had been refinanced in the past. And although most bonds can be refinanced at today's rate to save money, that decision is made by the State Treasury Office and Public Works Board and DGS, and the timing is always important too, with depending upon economic situations within the state as far as refinancing. We have not actually reached out to do that and check into it, but we certainly can take that action.
Yeah, I mean, if we don't have any control over it, I can understand it. But if you could maybe just check in, it'd probably be a good idea.
Absolutely agree. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Seeing that there are no further questions, Mitch, yes?
Yeah, just a couple of things. First, I wanted to point out, in the good old days, we used to get a much more robust facility plan. So Shannon and I will be meeting to talk about how we can move to that in the future. I think that got to a lot of the questions we had. And then I wanted to ask about the condition assessment. Is that using the same methodology that DGS uses for all its office buildings? I know about half a dozen years ago, DGS undertook an effort to look statewide at what were the buildings that needed to be replaced, and they were using a methodology that at the time Caltrans was not using for its own buildings.
So, thank you, Mitch. Yes, it is very similar to that. The one that was done at the headquarters building was through DGS. It was through a contractor that they had hired that had done the assessment at the Sacramento headquarters buildings. The other condition assessments were it was a firm that Caltrans had hired to do those condition assessments in 2017. So they are similar. Sometimes the formulaic score that comes out is displayed differently, but the assessments that they go through are like. So I believe last year, in the questions that came from last year's presentation, we had provided as follow-up information a listing as to where our scores would fall within the listing that DGS has. And even though they're not a straight, simple comparison, we were able to try to draw close comparisons to where they would fall within their list. And I'm happy to share that information again if it's useful.
Yes, that'd be fantastic. And just as a follow-up, when you're looking at your buildings, are you looking at whether there is adequate broadband and Wi-Fi capabilities there, or that needs to be upgraded given our current
Yeah.
our
Yes.
or electric, yeah. But just to make sure, given the changing working environment.
Thank you. And so the assessments that had been done, like I said, had been the most, 5 years ago and so. So as we move forward, I think that would be very important points to be taking a look at. The needs of all of those within new assessments that may be performed. So just to answer the question, and the ones in the past, I do not believe that that was a component that was looked at. We'll look to do so moving forward.
Thank you. We fully concur with that. Commissioner Falcon?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks so much, Shannon, for the presentation. Just a couple questions. One on the telework opportunities. I'd like to see how that's how your needs are adjusted based on your assessment of your priorities based on, the folks that will be doing more telework. That's one question. And then the second question, this just comes from my legislative days and dealing with earthquake retrofitting. Are there aging buildings that are slated for retrofit or complete replacement? And does that figure into how much maintenance that you put into those buildings against completely replacing those buildings?
Thank you so much for the question. So let me take the first one. Regarding telework, that's exactly where we are, is in the sense of trying to determine those numbers of staff that will be working in the office 100% of the time, working in the office on a hybrid couple of days a week, and then those that would be out of the office, say 4 days a week. Each one of those constitutes a requirement of space. And we do not have that full picture outlined in all areas. We are getting closer and closer all the time. But that is what's going into our assessment. How many shared workstations are we going to need? How many hoteling stations are we going to need? How many single occupancy workstations are we going to need? And that is still being refined as we go through this, making lots of progress, lots of headway. But again, getting to that ultimate setup and need is where we are in trying to define our space and looking at how we use our work world differently. If coming to the office means getting together in meetings, then that might mean we need a whole lot more meeting space and open space for collaboration and folks to come together and not just to sit in a cubicle doing solo work as they might be able to do in a remote location. So those are the type of things that are being evaluated, and what does that look like moving forward. So again, I can't say that we have that all defined, but those are the specifics that we are trying to work through as a collective group throughout the state and defining those needs. Regarding your second question, I do not have information right off the top. I am happy to get back to you. But yes, looking into seismic retrofit fits do go into the assessments that are there off the top. I'm not familiar with which ones may or may not. I'm going to look into that and get back to you as soon as I can.
Thank you very much. We
Appreciate
really
that.
appreciate it. Commissioner Eager.
Thank you so much for the report. Appreciate it. I'll be very interested to see that assessment. And I'm sure part of that will be looking at the rural areas of California. I know in District 6 with 6,000 square miles, and you have some folks that live out in areas where broadband is not there. So it's got to be that sort of assessment of, those folks will need to come into the office if they don't have the capability. And I know there's other parts of the state that have that same issue. So I'll be interested to see that sort of assessment too.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see that there are no further comments from our commissioners, and Justin, I see that there's no public comment. With that, we will conclude this item, and I realize that we have not yet had our instructions for public comment. So Douglas, could you please present the instructions for public comment for this meeting?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Welcome to day 2 of the December 2021 CTC meeting. For those participating online, please note it is a separate link for today's meeting than it was from yesterday's. Links can be found on the first page of the meeting agenda. The meeting's agenda can also be located under the handouts tab and also on our website, Live closed captioning and American Sign Language translation are being provided on the webinar for the captioning service through our website, and you can see the live sign language translation on the screen. For a list of frequently used terms and acronyms, please use the link on the beginning of the agenda. It is also available on our website at the About CTC page. Presenters, if you are on the agenda to make a presentation, please do your best to be succinct. Please remember to speak at a steady pace to allow our translating services adequate time for accurate translations. If you are presenting remotely, we hope that you will turn on your camera during your presentation if you have one. For the members of the public, we welcome comments from the public as part of each item. For those attending in person, please submit a speaker slip to me up here at the front and make sure you put on there which items you want to make comments on. For those attending via GoToWebinar, you should see the webinar control panel, likely located on the right-hand side of your screen. There you will find the raise hand feature as well as the questions tab. We encourage you to use the raise hand feature as early into the item as you can to give the system time to acknowledge you. Alternately, you may use the questions tab to submit your comment. Please be sure to include the agenda item number you are commenting on, and commission staff will read your comment on your behalf. As a reminder, each registered attendee is provided a unique link and phone number to access the webinar. These should not be shared with other participants as they're registered to a specific attendee and can create confusion for staff when allowing public to make comments. For all of our participants, please do your best to be concise with your comments. Also, please make sure that your comments add new information. If you agree with the comments of a previous speaker, simply make that statement. Please remember to speak at a steady pace to allow our translating services adequate time for accurate translations. Since we often have many speakers, we ask that you make your point in 3 minutes or less. If for some reason we have many speakers on one topic, we reserve the right to limit the comments to 1 minute each as the chair desires. A timer may be displayed on screen during public comments. Attendees participating remotely will not be able to be on camera while making comments. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Douglas. And now we'll go to the information calendar. John Prey.
Morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Items 24 through 39 are all informational items. As noted on the change list, there are revisions to items 24, 36, and 39, and item 38 has been withdrawn. So with the exception of item number 38, all these items have been reviewed and found to have no issues raised by Commission staff. And therefore, individual items will not be presented unless specifically requested by a commissioner. So if there's no questions or comments, that concludes the presentation of the information calendar.
Okay, and I see that we have no public comment on any of these items, so we will move on to item 40. Thank you very much, John.
Madam Chair?
Hold on one second.
Oh, okay.
We are going to go out of order. We are going to take item 40 and we are going to take item 63 together or successively because of the recusals of Commissioner Inman. Now you may go.
Thank you. Pardon me, Madam Chair, for interrupting. I wish to recuse myself on item 40 and 63 as my employer, Majestic Realty, has holdings immediately adjacent to this project area.
Okay, thank you very much. And for those not present, Commissioner Inman has left the room. So, Teresa, are you going to present 40 and 63?
That is correct, Madam
Wonderful.
Chair.
Thank you.
Mhm. Commissioners, agenda item 40 is an action item. This is a STIP amendment that proposes to program 24.9 million of coordinated border infrastructure program funds to the construction phase of the State Route 11 Otay Mesa East Port of Entry Segment 3A project in San Diego County. The Otay Mesa East Port of Entry Segment 3A is located 2.5 miles east of the existing Otay Mesa Port of Entry along the U.S.-Mexico border. This project was noticed at the October meeting as required and is consistent with STIP guidelines. Staff recommends your approval.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions? Commissioner Falcon.
I don't have a question, but I'd like to make a motion. That's okay.
Hot diggity. Any?
Second.
Yeah.
So moved Falcon, seconded Lou. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. That's item 40, and then item 63.
Agenda item 63 is an action item. This is an allocation request that is greater than 120. The department requests the commission allocate $4,609,000 in coordinated border infrastructure funds to the State Route 905 landscape interchanges project in San Diego County. This request is $1,069,000 above the program amount for the construction phase of the project. This project is a mitigation project that is required as part of the final environmental impact report for the State Route 905 freeway project that was completed in 2016. This required mitigation project will landscape 3 interchanges along the State Route 905. The reason for the increase is due to the refinement of the project design during the design phase. Due to the ongoing drought condition in the state, the design changed to incorporate additional drought-tolerant, low-maintenance materials, as well as an increase in inner materials. This request is consistent with STIP guidelines and recommends approval of the allocation of $4,609,000.
Thank you very much. I see that Executive Director Weiss would like to speak.
Yes.
Yes, just a quick question for the department. Of course, staff were very supportive of the use of drought-tolerant landscaping. I thought that was what was being done as a matter of course. So is that being done as a matter of course? And then if so, what's different about the project that we need to make a change, that we needed to make a change?
I am not sure whether there is someone here from the department. I believe District 11. My understanding was that.
Yes.
Oh, perfect.
Can we recognize them for public comment?
I was going to try.
Yes, thank you, Chair Norton. We have Mario Orso looking to make public comment at this time. Mario, you're now free to speak.
Hello, this is Mario Orso. I'm the Corridor Director in District 11 for this corridor that includes SR 11 and 905. We do perform drought-tolerant designs. We went and enhanced the inert materials. After discussing with the community, we went and enhanced the amount of inert material in this job and even made it more drought-tolerant than what we are doing normally. So we are in response, we are doing drought-tolerant. We enhanced those features and we added inert material to make it even more or less dependent on water.
Is that like lava rock?
That sounds great. I'm really supportive of that. I hope we will consider being even more drought tolerant in designing in the future.
Could you define what the inert material is just for the listeners?
Absolutely, Madam Chair. It's basically adding more gravel, more texture to it, less materials that would need water itself. So we're adding gravel pathways, and those cost more than normal mulch, and that's what increased the cost.
And Teresa, is there a tracking as to how much water savings are offsetting $4 million in gravel and other drought tolerant?
Yes. You know what? No, but that is a very good question that I may follow up with the district just so that we can get more data as to what the difference would be from the prior design to this design. I think that's a good question. I can follow up with that.
Yeah, because if, as you could come up with that information, I think that adds to some best practices that we should maybe employ throughout the state, considering that we're in a drought.
Madam Chair, it also enhances or reduces the maintenance exposure to our employees, as they won't have to go and fix any smart controllers for irrigation or anything. It also is, it quantifies a reduction in time of our maintenance forces being exposed to live traffic. So that's another plus in addition to the drought tolerant.
Mitch?
That sounds like that could be an efficiency in the future.
I think I hear one as well. Thank you very much.
Staff recommends your approval.
Thank
Madam
you.
Chair, I believe Commissioner Davis wants to make a comment.
Yes, Commissioner Davis.
I would just make the motion.
Hot diggity. Okay, motion Davis, seconded by Falcon. All those in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. And now if we can get Commissioner Inman, let's go through the rest of the consent calendar. Yes, it's item 41 through 56.
Waiting for Commissioner. There we go. Okay, the rest of the items on the consent calendar are items 41 through 56. Those are all action items. And as noted on the change list, there are revisions to items 46 and 50, and item 49 has been withdrawn. So with those changes, Commission staff recommends approval of items 41 through 56 with the exception of 49.
Moved by Lou.
Excellent. Lou, motion. Eager, second. And no public comment. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. That takes us to item 57. Jose Oseguera. Thank you, John.
Good morning. Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners, and members of the public. Item 57 is an action item. This is the final EIR for the Los Angeles Union Station Forecourt and Esplanade Improvements Project. The Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transportation Authority adopted a statement of overriding considerations, finding that the benefits outweigh the impact. Staff recommends your approval.
Thank you. Are we taking 57 and 58 together or apart?
They were being separated, but I can join them together. Item 58 is an action item. This is the final EIR for the Simi Valley Double Track Project. The Southern California Regional Rail Authority adopted a statement of overriding considerations, finding that the benefits outweigh the impacts. Staff recommends approval of items 57 and 58.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Alvarado moves. Commissioner Inman seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. All right. Now we are on to item 59, Lori Waters. Update on the 2023 Active Transportation Program Guidelines Development.
Yes. Good morning, Commissioners. Tab 59 is an information item for staff to give an update on the 2023 Active Transportation Program Guidelines Development process and an opportunity for Commissioners to provide any input on this upcoming ATP cycle. Commission staff officially kicked off the 2023 Active Transportation Program cycle with a virtual workshop on the morning of November 9th, 2021. For this sixth cycle of the ATP, staff strongly believes that there should be few, if any, major changes to the program. Rather, we should continue to clarify guideline language, make necessary administrative changes, and further develop the Quick Build pilot program. Keeping the program consistent with last cycle lessens the burden on the many, many unsuccessful applicants from last cycle who will apply again this cycle. These applicants can then focus on updating data and community engagement and improving areas of the application where they fell short, rather than undertaking a complete project and application overhaul. With program stability as the overarching theme, the focus of the kickoff workshop was to inform stakeholders of the program cycle basics, such as programming fiscal years, anticipated funding amount, and engagement strategy. We also introduced potential program changes identified by staff and heard from the stakeholders any other ideas for workshop discussion topics. Lastly, Josh Rosa from the Department of Housing and Community Development gave a presentation on the Pro Housing Designation Program. At this workshop, we finalized the program schedule and identified topics for discussion. We also heard from the stakeholders that they support and would appreciate keeping the program as consistent as possible. Commission staff held the second workshop on November 17th. At this workshop, we heard a presentation from Caltrans Active Transportation Program staff on the Active Transportation Resource Center Disadvantaged Communities Technical Assistance Program. We also discussed topics such as the Quick Build Pilot Program Phase 2 and awarding points to projects that are included in an active transportation plan. The third ATP workshop was held on December 1st. This was more of a technical workshop to help applicants submit applications that are project study report equivalents. In other words, the application needs to include the appropriate information for ATP staff to verify the project scope, cost, and schedule, and to assess project deliverability and constructability. Caltrans ATP staff led this discussion and provided much valuable information. The next workshop is on December 15th with 4 others scheduled after that. We've had very good attendance and active stakeholder participation in all 3 workshops so far. The first 2 workshops averaged around 200 participants and about 150 at the third workshop. The workshop schedule, along with workshop meeting materials, are posted on the Commission's website under the ATP Program tab. During the cycle's engagement period, Commission staff is also conducting virtual site visits with prospective applicants to discuss their projects. And we will be hosting virtual branch workshops that focus on a specific region's challenges and concerns. One program change for this cycle that I wanted to highlight because I'm very happy about it is that we will not require applicants to submit any hard copies this cycle. We've been working towards this over the years, and finally, this cycle, both Commission staff and Caltrans staff feel comfortable going all electronic. This should be a big time and money saver for the applicants and save a whole lot of paper. That concludes my presentation. This is an information item, but I'm happy to answer questions and take comments.
We have a bunch for you, and
Oh,
we do
okay.
have public comment
Okay.
as well but I did want to say again at the beginning of my comments yesterday that your team particularly throughout the state, we just hear so many good things. And I just wanted you to go over how the program has ramped up and in terms of the number of applications and the number of in-person site visits and your ability, you and your extraordinary team's ability to get the scoring and the funds out on time, even though you provided a significant amount of time for cities coping with, and agencies coping with COVID to
Yes.
apply.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The number of applications has gone up and down a little bit. Last cycle, we had about 450, which is still a lot. And so over the cycles, we have tried to engage with the stakeholders as much as possible because we know how difficult it is to get funded. And sometimes the applicants just need another perspective on how they should frame their project for it to be successful. And this cycle, although I at first was a little bit concerned about doing virtual site visits, but they're actually going very well. And we have over 70 scheduled for over 90 projects. And sometimes in these site visits, we actually tell applicants, we never tell them don't submit, but we tell them maybe this isn't the best program for this project, which I think hopefully saves them some time and money.
We are very serious about the $2 billion request in the general fund for additional ATP funds. Can you talk a little bit about how you see, if that request was fulfilled, how you see implementing that, and how the previous applications and future applications would participate with those additional funds?
Thank you. If we were to get, so originally we were going to get the 500 million. And the idea with that is to fund some of the backlog from cycle 5, because we had so many unsuccessful projects, but a lot of great projects. I think our plan would be, if we got the 500 million, to continue that, because those applicants were kind of counting on that. If we were to get more, we would consider funding, maybe adding some funds to this cycle. And then 500 million of that is to do a pilot program for bike highways or very large transformative projects. So, but we would talk to stakeholders about it, as we always do.
And my last question is about the ability for those applicants who applied in cycle 5, because 91 was the cutoff. So you had lots of unsuccessful projects that were really quite wonderful. What you're going to allow them to do to not have to tinker too much with a project that scored well and then submit for cycle 6?
We're hoping that if we can keep everything pretty stable, which the stakeholders support that they can just maybe, it is important to maybe update their community engagement if they need to, and resubmit without too much more effort. And we won't need them to do hard copies, which that is it's a big money suck for them. So
that's great. Commissioners, do you have any other comments? I do want to add public comment, and Mitch.
Yeah, and I think in answer to your question, the one thing I'd want to add is it also depends on the timing. So we've had some programs where they get enacted in the budget, and then they said, we're going to get trailer bill language, and that doesn't happen till later in the year. And if we're going to adopt the statewide component, I think in December around, we're almost going to be there adopting a whole new program. So at some point, it may make sense to do it all in the next program.
Well, we look forward to hopefully timely support from the general fund so that we can do a number of things nimbly. Again, I see that Commissioner Liu would like to speak.
Yes. So I think with all of the guidelines that we're considering now, that the screening criteria are, CAPTI and equity. With active transportation, it's kind of like CAPTI's not an issue. With equity, we already have in the scoring criteria points for disadvantaged communities. So I assume we're going to retain that. My question, I guess, when that gets scored, is that an all or none, or is it? I mean, I see that the scores are mostly 10 points, except for planning can be up to 30 points. Is that you get all 30 points, or is it you might get 25, you might get 10, you might get 5?
in all of the project types, except for the plans, it's up to 10 points. So you can get a range from 1 to 10, depending on the benefit to the disadvantaged community, where it's located, and the severity of the disadvantaged community.
Great.
And we've worked on that over the cycles because we really want to give the most points to the most severely disadvantaged areas.
Yeah. And that's just the kind of equity measures I think we need in these guidelines. Thank you.
Yes.
I have a question, and then Sarkis will get to you. I'm glad you're here to participate in public comment. How are you keeping metrics or asking the applicants to keep metrics of these zero emission walking and biking trips and whatever other active transfer? Because I think, have found during COVID that there's been a tremendous shift to more trips that are zero emission and walking and biking, but it's not clear how the metrics are capturing all that. How do you see that happening?
Admittedly, that has been a challenge, but because of that last cycle, what we asked is for successful applicants, gave us a list of their destinations. And we used the Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities calculator to try to come up with some numbers. We're putting that data together now, and I'm hoping we can present that at a future meeting. And then for this upcoming cycle, we're going to do the same thing, but we are working towards, and Caltrans has a contract for a Cal BC model that should be a really good way to get at this. We're hoping. It's getting there, but it's taking a long time.
Thank you so much. Sarkis, would you please approach? And Lori, would you mind staying? Because I think we might have some more questions for you. Wonderful to see you.
Nice to see you. Good morning, commissioners. Thank you, Madam Chair. Sarkis Kotchak, Director of Programming with the Santa Barbara County Association of Governments. Nice to see you all. SPCAG supports the proposal by CTC staff to keep the program the way it is. As somebody who walks their kids to school and who's been involved with ATP since cycle 1, I can say that you have a very well-oiled machine, but we do appreciate what staff has done to be very cognizant and mindful to make tweaks here and there to make sure that we're addressing any recent trends or changes in statewide policies. So we support the staff proposal. We also, as a smaller region, are very thankful for the site visits that CTC staff is conducting. For regions like ours, that interaction is really important, especially for really small agencies that may not be as familiar with the program and look to submit applications. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any further comments, commissioners? If not, I want to thank you and your team really for some stellar work. And we look forward to opportunities to talk about new metrics as those companies are coming to our commission and talking about how to keep those metrics.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Absolutely. Thank you. We're going to move now to item 60. Zelan and Diane Anthony.
Good morning, commissioners. This is an information item. Senate Bill 1 required the Transportation Inspector General to provide a summary report of investigation, audit findings, and recommendations, and providing that at least annually to the governor, the legislature, and the commission. This is the third report since the inception of Senate Bill 1. Acting Inspector General Diana Anthony is here to present her report virtually. With that, I will turn it over to Diana. Oh, Diana, it looks like she's there on the panelists.
Hello, can you hear me?
Awesome.
Yes, we can.
Yes. So sorry, I'm dealing with the logistics here. Thank you, Zelan. Thank you very much. Good morning, Madam Commissioner and Commissioners. As Zelan mentioned, I'm Diana Anthony. I'm the Acting Inspector General. This is my full second year here with the office, and I'm proud to be here to present to you the annual summary of findings and recommendations for fiscal year 2021. As Zelan mentioned, this is about our third year under the previous predecessors, Rhonda and Arena, following in their footsteps to present to you today the information. This report was issued. It was issued in November 19th, and it is also available on our website. So today I won't go into all the full details. We're kind of following what we did last year and giving a little bit more context or perspective. We're kind of presenting 3 years worth of information, but more in just very summarized charts for everybody to kind of to look at. And a lot of that is based on prior questions and inquiries that we've had just to try to get a context of how things were going. But before I go there, I just wanted to definitely thank my staff, our audits and investigations team, that they have done an excellent job as we all have experienced the pandemic and just the increase in the various changes that have happened in this new fully remote environment. I just want to thank them for their full dedication to the work that they've done, which this presents summarizes their work. I also wanted to thank Caltrans Commission staff throughout the year. While we request information from them, They've been extremely responsive, so I just want to put that out there to say thank you as well. So for, again, today's presentation, in the interest of time, we'll just kind of do some high-level summaries, and we will go from there. Next slide. Thank you. So really quick background, as I understand it, that we have several new members and also new attendees. Really briefly, a background on our office. Our office existed. It was an internal audit office for Caltrans, but with the passage of SB 1, there were some additional increased accountability and transparency frameworks that were adopted. One of them was obviously to establish the independent office, and then also to establish and appoint an inspector general to oversee that office. Highlighted here are two just primary areas, one being which is the core of what our office does, and that is to ensure that state and federal transportation funds are spent efficiently, effectively, and in compliance with applicable state and federal requirements. The second kind of goes along with the increased in transparency, and that's to provide an annual summary of our findings and recommendations, which is the presentation that I will provide today. While the annual summary of findings and recommendations is distributed out, we also post all of our audits on our website. So those are always out on our website throughout the year. Okay, so I will go ahead and we can go on to the next slide. So the next two slides just summarize our activities for our investigations and our ethics office. This slide summarizes our ethics activities. So it depicts the number of complaints received via our ethics hotline, which is a phone and internet-based multilingual service for Caltrans employees and the public to report allegations of fraud, waste, abuse, or any other ethics policy violations. As the ethics allegations come in, we have a triage process. Essentially, it's two primary things, and we determine what the jurisdiction is. Is it within Caltrans jurisdiction? And does it have merit? And those two areas help us focus to determine what next steps should be taken. Two primary steps that are taken are either a formal investigation or it's a referral and collaboration communication with Caltrans Office of Disciplinary Services. As you can see here in the chart, it's fairly consistent in terms of the blue bars. Those are just indicates the number of complaints that have come into the office. The gray bars are those things that are closed, and then the red bar indicates substantiated cases. Fairly consistent. So I just wanted to highlight what each of the bars kind of depicts. The correlation between the gray and the red essentially means, so for 2020, or 2021, 211 complaints were closed. Of those 211, 23 were substantiated. So just wanted to explain the correlation between those two bars. Let's see, I think that was it for this slide. We can go to the next slide. So this is our investigations. Our investigations are essentially, these are formal. Our office conducts independent formal administrative investigations of alleged employee misconduct, and we also assist external entities such as the California State Auditor and law enforcement agencies with their investigations. We have ongoing communication pursuant to SB 1. We keep the Caltrans executive management informed of any high-level ongoing investigations or things that we have to work on. What the bar charts indicate here, obviously, it shows the very apparent, very big drop in the blue bars, which means new complaints coming in. The thing that I think one of the things that we attribute this to is the pandemic and the 100% telework environment. So this probably accounts for most of it. We haven't done a lot of inquiries into it, but we do believe that a majority of it is due to the pandemic and the telework environment. Again, the gray and the red bars are fairly consistent, meaning the closed investigations and then substantiated. So we don't see a lot of change there. We can go to the next slide. Okay, so this is our audit summary. So this summarizes our audit activities. Primarily, we have two, which are kind of indicated here to the right. We have program type audits and then project audits. Our program audits are essentially looking at the extent of whether the programmatic goals and objectives are being achieved. And we really look to determine whether internal controls are in place to manage the ultimate goals of those programs. Examples of those program audits are SB1 performance outcomes, the targets, things like is Caltrans reaching their target for culverts, bridges, LOS, TMS, things like that. And then the other is efficiency. So for the two programs listed here, one of them was the performance outcomes for culverts, and then the second one was our audit on the efficiencies audit, which again, as you know, Caltrans is to come up with 100 million in efficiency savings on an annual basis. The other three items here, local agency construction and Proposition 1B, those are what we call project audits. And the two primary audit objectives for those are, we look to see, are the project's costs claimed, are they in compliance with statutes and agreements? And then lastly, was the project completed as intended? In other words, were the outcomes and outputs achieved? So those are the primary objectives for those, and these are the types of audits. Let's see what I can, so as you can see, Proposition 1B, that is the Proposition 1B funding. That is an area or audits that we contract out with Department of Finance. And I'll speak a little bit more about that in the next slide. So we can go to the next slide. So this slide kind of just summarizes and kind of compares for the last 3 years the audit costs and the question versus the question disallowed costs. So on this slide, you'll see that the blue bar indicates the total contract costs audited, meaning the total dollar amounts that we audited in a particular audit. And then the red bar indicates the question or disallowed costs. As you can see on the right, the definition of a question cost would be a cost that are non-compliant with federal, state statutes or regulations or program agreements. And then it could also indicate that the cost was not supported by adequate documentation. So that's the definition of the question and disallowed costs. What the chart indicates, so in terms of the percentage of question costs versus the audited costs, fairly consistent between the 1920 and 2021. There was a jump, as indicated in 1819. A lot of that has to do with the size of the project, the size of the amounts of contracts that we're looking at, and that can vary throughout the years. The same is true for the jump between 1819 and 1920 in terms of the contract amounts. It just depends on the projects that are selected. They can vary, as you know, from a $100 million project to a $2 million project. So it just depends on the size in terms of the blue bar that's indicated here. Some common question and disallowed costs, often we get the question of, are there recurring issues? Are there recurring types of things that you see? I would say that recurring types of items are just costs that are not adequately supported. There's, not enough documentation to support the claim costs. And those things can vary. It could be, construction expenditures, or it could be labor or billing rates. Those are some of the common things that we see. I think we can go to the next slide. Total avoided costs. So this slide depicts what we call avoided costs. So these would be our audits and reviews that we conduct on architectural and engineering contract financial document reviews. And then we also conduct construction special request audits. These are services that our office provides to Caltrans. And so these are things that come to our office at the request of Caltrans. The avoided costs, as you can see, the definition is different from question and disallowed costs, in that avoided costs are things similar to question. They are not either, they could be not supported or just not in compliance with the regulations. But the difference here is that these costs have not yet been paid by Caltrans. So that is something that the audits office will find early on. And so it's notified and noted to Caltrans prior to Caltrans making any payment. So there's no collection efforts that have to be made in these cases. So again, that's what avoided costs are. The chart shows fairly consistent. Not a lot of jumps again in the contract audited costs and then the total avoided costs, fairly consistent. That's why we put the gray bar at the top, 3%, fairly consistent. In 2021, it was 2.3%. So that has remained fairly consistent. If we can go to the next slide, thank you. So as we also include in our annual report pursuant to SB1 requirements is the status of audit recommendations. In the actual report, we include the status of audit recommendations for 3 years, for the prior 3 years. This particular slide just indicates the status recommendations for 2021. And as you can see, for the year, we issued 139 total recommendations. Currently, or actually, it's not currently, the report is as of June 30th, 2021. There's 120 were open and 19 were closed. And that's to be expected. These are audits that were just issued, so recommendations do take time to close and to address. We can go to the next slide. So this slide is just a depiction of just the program audits. I didn't include on here all the other types of audits, the cost incurred or the project audits. I just wanted to focus on the program audits for this slide. And what you see here is the blue bars are the open, and the red is the total closed. And that's what you want to see. That you want to see in the prior years that there are closed audits or closed recommendations, sorry. And that's fairly is what we see here. As you can see, the gray line is 89% to 93% are closed in the prior years. In the current year, as I mentioned, they were just issued, so Caltrans is still working on those recommendations. And actually, just currently, I think as of this last month, 3 or 4 additional recommendations were recently closed. So again, this chart depicts as of June 30th, 2021. Let's see, I think that was all I have for this chart. So that's the summary. So that's a very quick summary of our annual report. Again, it's 60 pages long. In the interest of time, I didn't go into detail, but happy to answer questions. This slide, I just wanted to put a quick looking ahead, and it depicts 2 primary areas that our office will be focusing on in the next fiscal year. Obviously, the first is the 21-22 audit plan, which is posted to our website, and it just depicts our ongoing work efforts. Again, the primary areas that we look at are program audits and project audits, and as listed here, it's, we're looking at SB1 performance outcome targets, efficiency measures, SB103 outreach efforts, and then we continue to work on project cost compliance and ensuring that projects are achieving their deliverables. On the right-hand side, I just wanted to highlight something that we're very, very proud of. We issued our first strategic plan for our office. This is for the next 4 years, 21 through 24. And as noted here, it really centers on those 3 primary areas, people, process, and technology. I know with her Caltrans, I know Director Omashakin talks a lot about people first, and we're right in line with that. So one of the first things we have here is working to improve our change management, training, and communication strategies. That goes not just for our office, that also goes for all external stakeholders as well. Really trying to increase our transparency, increase our website, and then reaching out to external stakeholders at the local level and at the state level. And definitely partnering up with Caltrans and commission staff over the years has been very well. We want to continue to increase that in the coming years. And then next is process, just looking at workflows and ensuring that we can add value in our audits, as we all want to see Caltrans be as efficient as effective. And so we continue in those areas. And then the lastly is technology. Again, very proud that we we're able to procure and implement a new case management system, which will help us drive and provide data analytics and trends and dashboards in the coming year. So that is my presentation. That concludes my presentation, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much for that very, very thorough presentation. Commissioners, do you have any questions? Commissioner Liu.
Thank you. So before the meeting, I asked a question of you and you answered it. So my issue is not really with you, but a question for staff. And I had noticed that in the Inspector General reports that project benefits being achieved was one of the criteria that you were looking at. And I was wondering, because I always am concerned about, over the long term, whether promises of congestion relief and air pollution reduction and all that are actually happening. And you said, well, long-term issues need to be assessed by the administering agency. And I see where you're coming from on that, and that makes sense. But I guess my question to staff is, do we have a process, or does the department have a process in place where we look at whether or not the promised project benefits are achieved over the long term?
Mitch?
Yes. We have accountability and transparency guidelines which require reporting. I'm not sure offhand when we have a final delivery report. I'm not sure what our reporting requirements are after that, and I can turn to Matthew and ask him to come up and help me, phone a friend, I guess.
Yeah.
And we're planning on updating those, and I think that's something that might be worth having a conversation about.
Yeah, I'd like to see something simple that maybe could fit on a slide.
We're going to come up with a whole manual about how to do it.
That I don't want to see.
A one pager. Well, Commissioner Liu, I appreciate the question. And Mitch is correct. Once the project is completed, we are issued a final delivery report. You've mentioned, I believe in the last meeting, there should also be a follow-up to like the 20-year, I think, build, forecast, in determining if there are check-in points between when the project is completed and whether it's actually accomplishing these outcomes. And so I will be honest, I don't know that we have anything built into the existing accountability and transparency guidelines to go beyond revisiting at 20 years or like much further along in the life of the project, but we're taking up the accountability and transparency guidelines, SB1 transparency guidelines, kind of like version 2.0 this spring.
Okay. Remind me to ask the question again.
Pardon?
In the spring. Remind me to ask the question.
Absolutely. Certainly.
Commissioner, we won't forget about it, so we will make it so you don't have to ask the question.
So that is correct.
That would be even better.
And it's a really good point, as you asked and Matthew indicated, at 20, calling up someone 20 years from when a project is done and say, by the way, dig up whatever. I mean, we're not going to get any answers. And so should we be putting in something that's, biennially or what's the time, some kind of periodic reporting on at least the very largest projects, right?
Right.
We don't not,
And the biggest issues like congestion and air pollution for me, are how's it performing?
Oh, sorry, Chair.
No, I want you to answer these two questions, and then I would like to recognize Commissioner Inman.
Certainly. So for one, we can certainly start working on that now so that you don't have to remember to bring it up again, Commissioner Liu. The second thing I do want to mention is in cycle one of our SB1 programs, we did ask for project benefits or these performance metrics outcomes, but we didn't have a very rigorous textbook or guidebook, if you will. And as you know, Commissioner Liu, we have been working on a very comprehensive performance metrics guidebook for cycle 3, which will be the most depth that we have offered tools and resources to applicants to hopefully understand what they will be measured upon down the road as well. And so with that said, we can always point back to the guidebook and say, if you gave us this measure and use these types of resources, we can revisit how to, hold that periodically accountable over the course of the lifetime of the project. But that is not currently in the accountability and transparency guidelines.
Commissioner Inman.
Well, I think to build on that a little bit, there are also those externalities that occur. So if we look at the COVID experiment and we saw the vehicle miles travel go down and then they have shot back up, but we're still remote working. And so I struggle a little bit of understanding, whoa, you know, we just are not creatures to stay home alone. Is that what it is? And we sneak out, or, you know, what's everybody doing? I think so. I think for all of us to see what are those causal, and, you know, on the air quality right now, we've got 100 vessels hanging out. You know, now they're hanging a little further out, but still, I mean, huge impacts in terms of air quality. So if you're going to evaluate overall air quality, but we add this other extraordinary event, so to speak, and one could argue the wildfires have been the same kind of thing where we've had just a huge number of wildfires. So I don't know how in all of our transparency and accountability and reporting back, you really can get finite enough to say, this is what was directly related. But I have another question that has nothing.
Well, I can respond, Commissioner Inman, because I think that's an incredibly valid point, and this is not the first time I've heard it. Since these discussions have come up, I have heard, that there would be challenges in, setting specific, types of reporting requirements to hold, agencies accountable to specific outcomes given these externalities, which is why I want to assure this commission that it will be a process through, the guidelines process will not just be done in a vacuum. We will take all considerations and anything that we make more robust in the 2.0 accountability and transparency guidelines. And we will aim to, offer a path for externalities, as you mentioned, so that if there is a catastrophe, we're certainly not being unreasonable down the road.
Yeah, that's actually not what I was envisioning. What I was envisioning is that when a project's being proposed, there's some modeling of what the, air quality benefits, congestion benefits will be. And then perhaps that, some measurement could take place in the future to see whether those benefits occurred and then model what the air pollution, consequences were or something like that. And obviously VMT fits in there too, but there might be some way to do sort of project specific, not just general, regional air quality issues. I did have another question for the Inspector General, but I can wait if.
Yeah. Back to if we could finish with Matthew, because I think we now have some questions for Matthew. And then I would like to make sure that the Inspector General does stay for the totality of the questions on the report. Commissioner Inman, you had a follow-up question, and I had one for
Mine
Matthew as
doesn't
well.
relate to Matthew.
Yeah,
though.
I just want to jump in real quick. That is one of the things that we asked about, or what are some of the key assumptions? Because we recognize that one of the things that made an impression on me a number of years ago, just exactly to your point, when Andy Chesley, the former head of San Joaquin COG, testified once at the commission and mentioned that his largest employer in his county was not there 10 years ago. And so there are lots of things that are going to impact it that are beyond anybody's control, that are going to be beyond what we're able to model. And that's the type of thing we need to know. If you're forecasting a population growth or employment growth of a certain percentage over this 20 years, then we'll be able to look back periodically and say, are we on that track or not? Because that could explain why something performs better or worse than we expect.
So my point to add to this is that we did promise the voters some metrics as to what was going to happen with congestion, as to what was going to happen based on the investments that we're making. And I think as we are now going back into some more thoughts about road pricing, I think there are more expectations about the kind of flows that we're going to have, and also the kind of participation into mode shift, where we go, how many more people are going to be on buses or carpool or vanpool. And as technology is improving, as we just heard from Lori, we're going to have more of these technology companies that are going to say, we can provide you that data. So I'm looking forward to your assessment of how we can at least take some of these snapshots and look, as we're talking about, these projects that we're funding, where people say we're going to have this kind of effect on overall mobility and hopefully overall network effects, how we can start responding to that in terms of what we're getting and how we're getting it. And I'm very excited for how you plan to put that together, because I think it's the kind of thing that we're really looking as to, should we invest in this or this or this? And if we're telling the public that they're going to pay X amount in gas tax or in road user charges, what are they getting? So this is going to be a very interesting exercise. And we do want to make sure we're asking of all of the Caltrans and other companies that are coming in and saying that they can provide us those metrics. Let's factor that in when you're providing your assessment, so that we can make sure we're holding all of these projects accountable, but we're also asking that the Caltrans studies are providing this on a larger basis.
Absolutely, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Eager.
So I might have missed it, but in this assessment, are we looking at Commissioner Inman's suggestion about VMT and what happened, this last year, and how is it that now they've shot back up, that, we have people on the roads? Are we looking at whether or not people are not flying anymore or taking trains? I mean, we would assume that's the case, that nobody feels comfortable doing that. And that could be for the next 10 years, right? That people don't feel comfortable doing that anymore. Is that part of this assessment?
So Commissioner Eager, I can't say that we take something that specific into consideration right now. For instance, like a Cycle 1 congested corridors project that has to do with, a large corridor and congestion on that corridor. If there was an assessment that said VMT would increase or decrease, I would say we don't have a system in place to account for, if all of a sudden those motorists are opting off of using that on-system corridor or road corridor for a period of a year or 2 years or 10 years. We don't, or not that I'm aware of, we don't have anything in place right now to test what those outcomes might be, but I know that that's what we're trying to build towards. And going back to what Chair Norton said, I think this is a really good opportunity to revisit this. I understand if we could have had this level and degree of planning when we implemented our programs, because we're about to take on Cycle 3, we likely would have a lot more of the answers and responses to commissioners today. But this is a space that is certainly not new, but it's one that I would say we have the resources and capacity to take on now. And we certainly agree of the importance.
Thank you. Are there any further questions of Matthew or public
Commissioner
comment on this part? Because we do want to go back to the Inspector General as well.
Can I just add something to what Commissioner, or to
Yes,
what
of course,
Matthew said?
Tanisha.
So Tanisha Taylor with the CTC. Just to add to what Matthew has said and to Commissioner Eager's point about how changes in travel from either COVID or long-term issues get incorporated into what we're doing. We may not particularly do it at CTC, but what we do get is from our regional agencies, to Commissioner Liu's point, when they start to model, that data starts to become the background model into information into how they build their models and into those metrics that Matthew has talked about we capture from our programs.
Great. Commissioner Liu, you had a question of the Inspector
Yeah.
General, and I believe Commissioner Inman, you had another one as well.
So I started
Thank you,
thinking when
Matthew.
I was looking at the Inspector General's report that, here's an entity that not only sees what people are doing wrong, but also sees what people do right. That there are some people, when they look hard at it, and they don't have any audit findings. And I started thinking, well, what might the Inspector General be able to do to help everyone get to the place where they don't have audit findings? And so before the meeting, I asked staff to ask the Inspector General whether, there was something that could be done to as it regards to best practices. And the response I got back was that the Inspector General would be open to sharing audit trends and data analytics in terms of top recurring audit findings and internal controls to assist in mitigating them. And they're open to collaborating on that. So I was just wondering if the Inspector General could maybe expand a little bit on that, and whether staff and the department could, I hope, commit to trying to develop this sort of assistance so that people can avoid audit findings when the Inspector General does her job.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I can expand on that a little. So definitely this, both Caltrans and I think this office have in the past actually done some presentations and some outreach to the local entities or entities that are going to be subject to audit. And my understanding is it was done in collaboration, both Caltrans and our audit office collaborated and performed some of those presentations. Not too long ago, I would say about a month or two ago, we were contacted by I believe it, and forgive me if I get the acronyms wrong, but it's the Rural Task Force, the Rural Agency Task Force, contacted us and kind of was asking for us to do the same thing. And we welcome that. I think the end goal for everyone here is to assist and to ensure that things are in place, that the proper internal controls. So if we can all learn from some best practices, absolutely, we're more than happy to participate and collaborate with Caltrans and any external entities and stakeholders to provide that information. Like I mentioned in my answer, many times it's good to do this by looking at data and then also just looking at some case studies and both the good things. Here are some good things that we're seeing, and we're more than happy to share that. So we can reach out to Caltrans programs as we move forward.
Thank you. Staff, is there any opportunities for us to make sure that the process works?
Yes.
Yes. Well, we can certainly follow up with Caltrans. This will be an annual report, and so we can talk about next time the progress. And I'm sure our partners at the Rural Counties Task Force can let us know if we can improve the process.
Yeah, I guess my idea wasn't unique.
Okay, Commissioner Inman.
Thank you, Chair Norton. So my question, Diana, could you go back to the ethics complaints that were filed in those chart summaries?
Yeah, somebody can.
Or maybe staff is
I think
driving the train here.
Staff is driving that slide, so.
Could you guys roll back to that? It's coming. Okay. So my question, while those are coming up, was really timely response, because it looked like there were a number of complaints filed, and then the closed complaints seemed to be lagging a bit. But I couldn't really tell because so we have 154 new complaints and 104 closed. So those closed complaints could have been from a prior year, right?
Yes.
So we don't know. But assuming if we just set aside for a minute and say that still meant that we had 50 complaints outstanding. And then we roll the next year, we closed more than were new. So that was we little down on that backlog. But how long? I guess my question goes to the timeliness of a response from a time of complaints filed, because we may have a team member being put on suspension or on leave pending investigations. So are we able to give timely responses? And then tied to that is the next one on the investigations. It seemed like there were more open than closed. So can you address timeliness on this for us?
Yes, definitely. So for the, and I don't have the data in front of me, but we do track kind of the lag time. I forget what our goal is to address these a certain number of time, and I'll have to get back to you on what that is. But we certainly work and strive to address these timely. We do work with Caltrans, the various programs, whether it be the ODS, EEO, or other human resources, to address some of these as quickly as possible. But it is a coordinated effort. We do also, and again, I don't have that information in front of me, but we do track any kind of backlogs that we may have. And we do this on a monthly basis. And we provide all the data in terms of lags, in terms of time period with Caltrans executives, and also including those other programs so that we can work to put those out and address them as quickly as possible. Some of these, and then on investigations, some of these are also investigations that we work with, or they're at the request of a federal or other outside investigative body. Could be CHP, it could be at the federal level. Those tend to take a little longer if they have, if it's a criminal case, it takes a lot longer to address. But we do strive to address these very, very quickly. And again, we do report on them on a monthly basis to make sure that we're addressing those.
Okay, well, I think my point is to build confidence that we do have an effective ethics procedure in place. I think timeliness, a timely response. Otherwise, people are going to think, why bother? Because nothing's going to happen. So thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, thank you so much. Commissioners, does that conclude your comments and questions? Thank you so much. And with that, we are going to take a break from now until 10:50. We'll be back. Thank you so much.